Here's everything you need to transform a chunk of beef into a tender pot roast, because this is perhaps the single most efficient way to cook beef and potatoes. Pot roasting works by partially submerging meat in aromatic liquid, surrounding it with aromatic vegetables and potatoes, and then covering it and baking it until the meat is really tender. And it's best to get started by brightening up the flavors of those aromatic vegetables, the carrots, the celery, the onions, the garlic. You don't need to spend a whole lot of time here slicing and dicing these vegetables into tiny little pieces either. They cook for so long that big chunks easily release their flavors. This simple step really pays dividends. Just heating these vegetables through really wakes up their flavors, and you don't need to take the time to brown them. And you don't have to brown the meat either. I mean, you can if you like. It certainly adds a lot of flavor if you brown the exterior of the meat. The fact is, in a pot roast, because the meat is only partially submerged, the part that's above the liquid, it's going to brown anyway. As the pot roast cooks, two things happen in the pot. The meat cooks through, it gets nice and tender and flavorful, but a broth forms too. You can splash in water, you can splash in beer, you can use beef broth, or get it started with some red wine, whatever you happen to be drinking. A cup or so. Canned tomatoes are a good choice too. Lots of field-ripe sunny flavor here. And herbs come in two basic families, sort of lighter flavored and stronger flavored. On the lighter side, things like mint or cilantro or dill, parsley, they're just not going to work here. They'll get lost with all these other flavors. But on the stronger side, herbs like rosemary and bay leaf, they're great additions. They can really stand up to the long cooking time. And there's still lots of room here for potatoes. You can cook a pot roast on the stovetop. You need to maintain a simmer inside the pot, which means, well, things could burn and you're going to need to peek and look inside and lose efficiency and heat, and really it's not a good idea. It's a better idea to cook the pot roast in your oven where the heat is even and it comes from all sides. Although, it is a good idea to give it a jump start here. Once that broth is simmering, it's ready for the oven. 300 degrees is the best oven temperature to maintain a simmer inside a closed pot, even though the temperature in the pot is actually 212 degrees Fahrenheit. That's because air is a very poor way to transfer heat. Even with the fan on, it just doesn't do it that well. And that's also why it's a good idea to preheat the oven to 350, because by the time you open and close the door and put things in and out, you lose a lot of heat. Now you can turn it down to 300 and get ready for 4 hours of flavor building. The basic method for pot roasting is a great way to cook any large piece of meat. It's kind of the world's easiest way to cook something like a pork shoulder or a lamb leg or any cut of beef that's labeled for braising or pot roasting. You could even do this with a chicken. You'd have to deal with a lot of bones, but it can be done. I think what I like best about pot roasting, though, is that it's an easy way to make a complete meal. You've got your beef, potatoes, vegetables, even gravy. Although, if you want to take this over the top, you're just a couple of steps away here from a sauce. These vegetables are so soft from cooking that they immediately break down into a puree, and that puree thickens the broth into a sauce. Now that's a beefy sauce. Or a gravy, same thing in this case. And I have to say, this is the easiest way I know to make a nice thick beefy gravy, because for a lot of people, beef and potatoes is all about the gravy.